Welcome back to Accessible Gourmet. Today we're making a gingerbread house. To start this process, we need 3.5 cups of self-rising flour, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of packed brown sugar, as well as 2 tablespoons of ground ginger, 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of ground cloves. We're just going to pulse all the dry ingredients until the ingredients start to blend together. Then we're going to start adding in 3/4 cup of room temperature unsalted butter. That's about 13 tablespoons. Then I have 1/2 cup of golden syrup, 2 eggs, and 2 egg whites, and we're going to beat this together. If you can't find golden syrup, you can definitely use molasses. We're going to pour this into our dry ingredients with the motor running, just until this dough comes together. My food processor is a smaller one, so I had to take this out to continue mixing. But if you have a larger one with a more powerful motor in it, you should be able to do this whole process in your food processor. If you're like me and you have a smaller one, be careful when you remove the dough because you don't want to slice your hand on the blade. So we just want to bring this dough together until all of the flour is absorbed into the rest of our gingerbread dough. Once our dough has come together, we're going to portion this into 2 sections. I actually only ended up using half of this dough recipe and froze the rest. But we're going to wrap this in plastic and put it in the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes. We just want the dough to reset back up and for the butter to re-solidify a little bit. I got this really cute gingerbread cookie cutter set on Amazon. It comes with everything that you need. If you are more technically minded, you can definitely build and draw your own template. I'm just trying to figure out how this thing goes. I should have just looked at the back of the box where the illustrations were. But it comes with everything that you need: your chimney, your front and back sections, the walls, the floors, the windows, the door, as well as a couple extra really adorable cookie cutters. Now here's the importance of chilling your dough. I got a little overenthusiastic and decided to roll one out before it was completely chilled. We're just rolling this out into a semi-rectangular shape. I don't think it really matters. You just need enough surface area to be able to cut out all of your pieces. This is a sticky dough, so you're going to have to flour it if it starts to stick to your parchment paper, which I am rolling this out and cutting this on. It just makes it easier to slide onto our baking sheets, and it's also good to dust your rolling pin. We want our dough to be at about 1/4 inch thick. When you're cutting these out, make sure you have the correct amount of pieces. I had cut out a floor section, not realizing I actually needed 3, 1 for the floor and 2 for the roof, so I had to quickly cut out and bake the next day. But just pull off any of the excess dough. You can roll this up and reuse it for the rest of your pieces. But again, this is the reason we want to chill our dough. I want to move this onto the baking sheet. Oh, I'm sorry, just really quickly. Also cut out your windows and your doors. It'll just make it easier to do so. But see, this is where that one piece ripped, and I ended up just starting from scratch. Roll this back into a ball, wrapped it back in plastic, and put it back in the freezer. So here is the properly chilled dough, and it's much easier to actually roll out. It's a little stiffer because the butter has really solidified a little bit more. But it just made it much easier to roll out and handle. So we want to bake these in a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. I had to do mine in batches because there were a lot of pieces for this little house. So just keep rolling out and cutting out your pieces that you need. I actually ended up cutting out a couple extra pieces that I didn't need, but it's always better to have a couple more than you need, just in case anything happens. After 15 minutes, we're going to take these out and let them cool for 5 minutes before removing them to a baking rack to cool completely. You'll notice the base of my house is cracked a little bit when I was taking it off of the parchment paper, so I cut out another piece, and there it is. I let these dry out overnight. You don't have to let them go for 24 hours, but definitely let them dry for at least 6 hours. So now I'm using my zester to just kind of sand down the edges of my pieces, just to make them a little flatter. To be honest, I gave up after a couple of pieces because I didn't really mind if it was rounded. This is just my little collection of candies that I'm using to decorate the house. I'm using more blues, whites, and silvers because those are the colors that speak to me. But if you prefer more traditional colors, then definitely use whatever candy speaks to you. We're also going to need some frosting bags, some paintbrushes. I also have some food tweezers, those fancy tweezers, frosting tips. If you're using paintbrushes and tweezers, make sure that they're only used for your food, just because we want to be a little hygienic here. So now we're moving on to the royal icing. I'm using a recipe from Alton Brown. It's on Food Network. But I halved his recipe because I didn't need as much as he was saying to make. So I sifted 2 cups of powdered sugar, and then I'm using 3 tablespoons of pasteurized egg whites. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that whole debacle about my meringue powder. And we're also using 1 teaspoon of vanilla paste. If you're using egg whites and you plan on eating this gingerbread house, please make sure the whites are pasteurized, just to keep everything food safe for everybody. Then we're going to start adding in our powdered sugar a little bit at a time on a lower speed because it will definitely cloud up and powder everywhere. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of cold water, 1 at a time, because it comes together pretty quickly. And we just want to beat this until we get stiff peaks. I removed half of the royal icing because I wanted to dye the other half blue. So I just used a simple food coloring gel. You only need a tiny little bit because a little bit does go a long way. And to fill your frosting bags, you want to snip off the end, insert your frosting tip, then put this in a container or a cup and wrap the edges over the side and put in your frosting this way. This keeps the frosting off of the ends of your bag, and it just makes it a little neater to get the frosting in the actual bag. If you're not using the frosting right away, keep it in the frosting bags, or if you're going to use it later and you don't have frosting bags, put it in a bowl, but put the plastic directly on top of the royal icing so it doesn't form a crust. And then you simply start assembling. I actually did this incorrectly at first. They should be sitting on top of the base, not on the side, but I did go back and fix that later. If you've ever used grout or spackle, you're basically doing this with your house. I started with an offset spatula, but I found that it was easiest to just use my fingers and to smooth everything out. Also, if you have a cake board, it makes it much easier to move your gingerbread house around. Just put a dot of the royal icing underneath the base so it sticks to your cake board so nothing moves. I also used a Lazy Susan so I could spin my house around while I was decorating. If you have a cake stand that spins, that's great as well, even if it doesn't spin. And I'm using ramekins here just to hold up my edges and walls to give it time to set so they wouldn't collapse in, or I'm sorry, out in this case. But while this was a little nerve-wracking, it was very cathartic because you can't really think of anything else while you're doing it. You're just spackling and putting things together. I apologize if this section is long, but I just wanted to show you the entire process that I took to assemble my little gingerbread house. This is my little chimney pieces that I'm just putting together. When it comes to adding the royal icing, less is not more. Use as much as you need to get your pieces to stick together. If it oozes out of the side, that's fine. We're decorating over all of this. And kind of the charm of a homemade gingerbread house is the fact that it isn't perfect. Definitely all over Pinterest there are these gorgeous gingerbread houses that are showstoppers, but those are professional bakers. I am not. So I'm just doing the best I can with my first time building this. When it comes to the two sides of the roof, I ended up using a lot of royal icing because I did not want this to slide off. I used ramekins to hold up and use as scaffolding, for lack of a better word, since we are building here. But again, use cups, jars, anything that's the height that you need to support your little house. Once everything is assembled, I let this guy dry overnight again because the candy does get heavy. But let's start the montage of me decorating my cute little gingerbread house.
I used to dream of walks in the snow, a kiss underneath the mistletoe. I used to think that I wanted somebody on Christmas. I don't. Memories hide in holiday cheer, welcome me back every year. Why would I wanna be with someone else, wishing I could be here? Now that I'm home and I'm getting a little bit older, I'm not quite ready for moments like these to be over. I don't mean to be selfish, but when I look around I can't help it. Maybe I don't wanna grow, 'cause I know I'd be missing too much. Guess I'm not there yet, don't wanna go home to his parents. All the things I'd have to give up if I spent Christmas in love. Warm by the fire, mom's hand. Stay up all night, but wake up at 10. Don't wanna share any time when I'd rather just spend it with them. Now that I'm home and I'm getting a little bit older, I'm not quite ready for moments like these to be over. I don't mean to be selfish, but when I look around I can't help it. Maybe I don't wanna grow up, 'cause I know I'd be missing too much. Guess I'm not gay. Don't wanna go
And there it
to a
is, my blue,
terrace.
silver, and white gingerbread
All the
bread
things
house
I had
bed.
to give up.
It was nerve-wracking to make, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Now that I'm home and my dad looks
If you liked this video, please click the like button. If you loved it, subscribe because I put out new videos every week. Until next time, happy holidays.